in another episode of Liztalks, and uh, we are proudly announcing that Christopher Chin is going to join us for this session. Christopher has been a presentation designer. He has been analyst working on different visualization initiatives. Has been a storyteller with like 4 years experience in the business intelligence space. He has been very innovative and been creating some different presentations, very informative, and providing some actionable insights to his clients. And he's also very passionate about perfect technical communication. And I'm going to ask him, what does that perfect technical communication means, right? Okay, so why don't you just give 2 minutes, like a brief intro of you, Christopher, and then we can take it from there. Just start with your introduction, and also in the end, please help us explaining this term as perfect technical communication. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you, Arif, and thank you so much for the invite to participate in this webinar. I guess a great way to start off is, just as you said, my background is in business intelligence and data visualization, data storytelling, and I am very passionate about trying to communicate insights from the data in a way that people can take action from it.
Okay.
And so I think a good way to start off is actually by kind of going backward. What people find most interesting about my career is actually that I come from a very entirely different background in music composition, actually. And so I did work creatively with film scoring, with advertising. And so a lot of my mindset is around trying to be creative and thinking out of the box when it comes to data, all the way back from there. And so I carry all that to my current career, where I offer presentation, dashboard design services. And my aim is always to make sure that the story within the data is communicated well. So going to your earlier question about technical communication, what I mean by that is, so often when it comes to data, there's often, let's say, 3 stages to the data lifecycle process. You have the data at first, you want to gather it, you want to put it together in a form that can be analyzed. So that would be step 1. Step 2 would be trying to analyze the data itself, whether that be quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis.
Okay.
And the third step would be the communication part. And that's what I mean by the technical communication, what I feel like is that often this third step is often one of the most neglected parts of the analytical process, because you can have all these interesting insights from your analysis, but if it's not communicated well, if it's not presented well in a way that's insightful, and compelling, then people won't be able to know what to do based off of the information. So the focus of my work has been perfecting that last part, that step 3 of technical communication.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Just a small question, that when you design it, do you use any UI or UX design tool for designing your data visualization? Is more rather than the BI stack before? You would use like whiteboard, or how you just conceptualize it, just as a note?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think what I try to do is bring in those UI UX design principles to the work that I do. So there's aspects of color theory, of typography, so what fonts you choose, what colors you choose, that are very important to communicate the message. And the tools that I use range from things like Figma for kind of trying to get those wireframes, to just the simple intelligence tools like Power BI. buckets, so 0 to 6 days, 7 to 27 days, and then the same for 2013. So this is an analysis, but this would not be considered data visualization. The data visualization would come when you try to put it into a graph or a chart that immediately communicates the insight going on. So when you look at this chart, you can instantly see two things. One, the thing that stands out the most is often color. So here the gray bars stand for the older year of 1990, and the blue bar stands for the more recent year of 2013. So you immediately notice that contrast. The other thing that can stand out is the size differences between the bars. So the gray bars are taller than the blue bars. That's another immediate visual attribute that stands out. So those two things combined give you the story of previous year to current year, the trend has gone down.
Is it something like generally when we say analytics versus your visualization, it's more on the side or it's more?
I think the focus of my work has been on that quantitative side. So I deal a lot with numbers, trying to use a lot of different queries to get the information that I need, and then turning those numbers into information that people can understand. That's another great question. I think two of them were actually shared here. So in data visualization, there's a concept called pre-attentive attributes. So these are attributes that are very much being built into the kind of animal part of our brain. So things like color, things like size, things like motion. Those things immediately stand out to us when we see them because they're instinctual. And so a good data visualization will use those components very effectively. So that color stands out very well here, and size is another attribute that lets us see the story. I think another good example would actually be something else here as an example that I have. This is a hypothetical example that I put together where I'm imagining that there's two companies. LinkedIn is on the left, and these are screenshots from the actual pitch deck. And on the right, I treated this fictitious company called Social, and I'm imagining that if they're both trying to pitch one investor for Series B, they have the exact same data, the exact same potential, the exact same growth. If the information is presented differently, which would the investor use? So LinkedIn's actual real-life examples are on the left. There's pie charts here, there's a quadrant chart here, and this fictitious example I have on the right, where I've condensed that information and visualized it in ways a lot more condensed. So the question that you asked is, what are the elements of the data visualization? So on the left, you have there are a lot of improvements I feel that you can make into this feedback that I showed here on the left. So there's a lot of color on the left. So the pie charts have this whole rainbow palette of colors, but that can be very overwhelming, distracting for many viewers. For example, if you look at the pie charts, the bright yellow color is one of the colors that stands out the most to you, but actually it's the LinkedIn slice that should be the focus of this particular story. So removing a lot of the color that's unnecessary is important for data visualization. Removing a lot of clutter is also necessary. So for here, where LinkedIn's pies have so many slices, you have all these data labels around the circle, but that can be also very much unnecessary noise. So removing that is a good element of data visualization.
This is more quantitative, but just touching basing on the quantitative side. Let's say we don't have here.
chart or a pie chart, it's less well-defined for that, but I do feel that qualitative information can be presented in a way that's also very visual. So actually, I think a good example from this deck that I put together here is another example I've had. So yeah, something like this. So there's qualitative information. On the left again is the LinkedIn's real life example. On the right is my hypothetical example that kind of condenses it easier to digest way. So if you have qualitative information, here we're trying to investigate what is the problem. So the problem that LinkedIn is trying to solve is there's no effective, trusted way for professionals to meet each other. And so the solution to that is LinkedIn, where they're offering a platform for you to meet people, to network, to build those meaningful relationships. And so the slide on the right, instead of just having the text and bullet points, if you can translate that into something that's iconography, that has the iconography, that has visuals, so you can see the bold text and the bold check marks, what's good and what's bad. Those simple visual indicators are very powerful when it comes to quality. So many. So there are the bar charts we've looked at, there's line charts, pie charts, there's the stacked charts where you have stacked bars and stacked area charts, stacked lines, there's map visualizations as well. What I found over the course of my experience working with them has been, for most use cases, you can really just use two kinds of charts. Okay. That would be the bar charts or the line charts. So bar charts would be for the discrete categories that you need to compare, and line charts would be if you want to see changes over time. And so those I found to be generally are the most common use cases that people ask for. And there are a lot of fancy charts out there, but you can boil them down to what message they're trying to say. Those are the two that I found work the most. This is a question that I'm often asked as well. I'd say that if you think about data visualization as a step above analytics, data storytelling would be a step above data visualization. So I like the analogy of baking analogy. So data visualization is like the eggs, milk, and flour when you're trying to bake a cake. But unless you perform the steps of putting them together, having that narrative through line, you won't be able to create the cake. So data storytelling puts the ingredients of data visualization together in a way that people can understand, and as we've been talking about, take action based on it. So I think a good example I can show is actually something that's publicly available. So what you can see here is a data visualization. So this is data from the US government, publicly available, that's showing the effect of climate change across the United States. Over here you can look at various different hazards. So let's look at riverine flooding, for example. So you can see they're visualizing where is there more risk. So the red, you can see in the legend, is very high risk. What I find interesting here is that if we go a step further, and the step further is the data story. So as an example of that, I've taken that same data, but I'm going to turn it into a story. So and by a story, I mean something that explains so why should I care about the data? What can I do about it? So what I'm looking at here is that river flooding example, and I'm looking at the most socially vulnerable counties in the U.S. So there's an index that measures that according to different. So what I'm looking at in this slide is essentially which counties would be potentially most impacted by flooding. So which have the most building value, and which counties have the most amount of buildings that could be affected. So if we look here, it looks like these three counties are the ones. And I look at the racial composition because one of the the last one. And again, this is the most socially vulnerable counties. Socially vulnerable here means counties where people don't, the amount of income that people make is as high, so people won't be as resilient. A lot of houses are unoccupied, and things like that. So the story here would be something like this. So if I take all of those socially vulnerable counties in the US, and I look at the racial composition of them, and this is based off information from the government on different kinds of minorities that live in these counties. So it looks like this population in orange, the American Indian population classified by the government, is the majority in most of these social vulnerable counties. So that's an interesting piece of information that people can take action. They can say, okay, so this population is most potentially affected by this hazard. So maybe we should go to these counties, focus on this population, inform them of the risk so that they can protect themselves. So in that way, that's how data storytelling puts an additional layer on top of it.
What makes a great data story? What are some elements that actually contribute to have a successful data story?
I think a good data story would need to really inspire people to, again, take actions based off of it. So another example that I like to give is if we're looking at financial data, for example, let's say that we have information about the actual budget and let's say the forecasted budget. So the plan, the amount that we thought we were going to spend and the amount that we actually spent. So we could just visualize it. We could have two lines you can imagine showing the actual and what was forecasted. And then that would be it. But the story would go beyond that. And a good data story will tell you where to look specifically to improve the business, let's say. So instead of just stopping there, you could say, oh, so which projects did we spend more on than we thought? Did those projects that we spent more on, did they contribute to the business in a meaningful way? So did they increase the awareness of our brand? So you could pull in survey data to see if the particular events that we hosted, for example, that we spent money on, did they help people raise awareness about our company? So if there were certain projects that did do that and that we did spend a little more on them, maybe that's okay. So a good data story will let you dig deeper into the data to figure out what are the most important elements and what elements should we focus on to increase certain important metrics that we have. So money, revenue, profit.
That's amazing. Generally, from a market perspective, do you think data story has more opportunities for let's say we have like people who have just started their journey as professionals. So from a market perspective, do they start with like data visualization or do they start with like data storytelling? How will you recommend will be the next steps from the career progression perspective?
I can relate a lot to that question actually, because as I mentioned before, I come from an entirely different field. And so a lot of the knowledge that I have now was largely through self-learning. So figuring out what's the important things that I should focus on.
Okay.
And so what the recommendation and advice that I would give is really focusing on the data visualization analysis first. If you have a really solid technical foundation, you can build off of that with the soft skills like storytelling and communication. But what I have found that companies and interviewers really look for is that spark of creativity that comes with storytelling. So they're looking for people who can think out of the box, who can think beyond just what the data is there, but what else can you do with it? How far can you dig? And what other questions that are normally asked can you pull out from it? And that's what really distinguishes professionals when it comes to the interviewing space, getting used to the field. So I would recommend starting out with the visualization because that's the part that is really technical. And then from there, building that storytelling, creative presentation skill.
Got it. Okay. And one also question is that the employers generally ask that, okay, this is your visualization, this is the data you have, and you have to think out of the box.
Yeah.
How will you come with a data story for which the data you don't have it? So how do you answer that question? That is like a, make or break kind of a question, because eventually the employer is just sitting on the ground at how far this guy can think and how he is going to develop. So what will be your answer on that specific question?
That's a really good question. I found many instances in my past experience where I'd like to ask a lot of questions about the data. So, but the data just doesn't exist to answer those questions quantitatively. I had one example where we were working with survey data, and the question that I wanted to ask was similar to the one that I presented before. So do the events that we're hosting, are they increasing people's awareness of our company? And at the time, that information didn't exist. We weren't collecting that particular question on our survey. So that wasn't something that I could answer. So I wanted to see if brand awareness was able to increase, but that just wasn't available. So I think when it comes to those kinds of problems in a company where data is missing, it's important to raise that with leadership. And I think that initiative will be really respected, where you say, hey, you can gain a lot of important insight from this new information if we gather it. So let's start gathering it. And you can propose, hey, let's start this new survey, let's gather the data. And then from there, I can show you how that can really help the business.
Okay. And one more question is that over the period, the executives have dashboards built over the last 3 years. Let's say previously there was no automation and the tools were not there. So they have been exposed to like the Excel version of it, right? And now their KPIs and whatever the trend is, monthly reviews, they have the PPTs, and they are very much used to those, that, okay, we are just going to reuse those elements, right? And now the analysts coming up with more kind of analytical tools and different graphical compositions like plotter and the stack charts, etc., etc. And sometimes the top team leadership is not even used to that, or they don't have actually exposed to that, or they are afraid that if they take it to the broader audience, what is the feedback? So from that perspective, when we say a data story, so there are two elements. One is what we guys as like the techno functional consultants, or maybe the middle management team is producing, but the C level, how they are going to adopt. So do you see any kind of adoption challenges where you create very informative data story templates and the visualization templates, but the top leadership is not there? Do you see that kind of a gap at the strategic level or at the leadership level?
Yes, I think that there is a gap that does exist. And I think I've been having a lot of conversations with fellow colleagues in the field similar to this. And I do believe that there is a data literacy gap, in the sense that, yeah, I think that what would really help is if we can all speak the same language. So us technical folks, we speak a very specific language about, the nitty gritty, the code, the SQL, the queries. And the C level, they don't really care about all of that stuff. They just want to see very quickly what is the answer that they need. And often they're used to, as you mentioned, a certain way of doing things. And so I think that what would really help is if across the board, from our level and all the way up, if there can be an increase in data literacy, people can understand how to interpret graphs, how to see the storytelling that we're trying to pull out from them. I think that would really benefit. If we can all communicate the same language, then we can all continue upskilling and presenting more and more important insights at higher and higher levels.
Perfect. Okay. Last but not the least, will you also highlight maybe any specific training our fresh people, or like the young people or millennials, can start from a data story perspective? You did just about data visualization, but from a data story perspective, what will be your perspective on like how they can enhance their current skill set to go to the strategic level?
That's a really fantastic question, and I love that we're having this kind of conversation. And I wish when I was at that stage as a fresh professional many years ago, that I had seen conversations like this about recommendations. And so what I would recommend at this stage of my career is to really get into the data storytelling aspect. I would recommend trying to work with the data first. So doing the standard quantitative analyses that you're used to in statistics, trying to see the distribution of the values, trying to see if there's any outliers. And I think what would help is always thinking about what else can I do, as that question always lingering in your mind. So not just what data is there, but maybe can I bring in some additional data, merge it with the data that I currently have, and bring out new and interesting insights. So I think the number one question to ask for people trying to develop their portfolios, for example, in data visualization and storytelling is, what else can I do? And I think if you continue to encourage that question, it will really inspire you to look in directions that you haven't looked before. And trying to dig into those spaces. So that would be my biggest recommendation.
Perfect. Okay. So I think thank you very much for responding to the questions, and very great information. And I hope our, the viewers who is going to view this video, they can get something out of it. Now, let's move to our next session. That is our fun seat. This fun seat is like a hypothetical kind of a seat, and let me, if you allow me, can I make myself host?
Yes, of course. Let me stop sharing.
Okay, so can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
Okay, now you can see that, right? So yes, so this is our fun seat, and hypothetically we are inviting you to come and just sit on the seat for our fun. Okay, so please enjoy it. It's a very luxurious kind of a couch, and let's move to the fun question. Okay, and with no offense, it's just a fun question. Two of them. So the first question is that if you want to look young and skinny in standing in front of a bunch of fat old people, what will be your visualization and data storytelling will be?
That's a very interesting question. So if I want to look young and skinny and standing in front of a bunch of fat old people, what would be my storytelling? So is the question saying, if I could visualize a crowd, how would I do that?
Yeah, so you are in the crowd, like you're like 20 executives, and you are the most, consider yourself, you are standing in like 20, 30 top CEOs, and all CEOs are like 50 aged, like 50, 60 with a very fat tummy, or like they're looking very fat. And you have a photo of them. Now you want to show a data story for that. How will you do that?
Well, I see. So I think they really would come down to mastering the visual design. So there are a lot of things you can do with the story to increasing maybe things like shadow and transparency when it comes to creating things like a slide deck or for a presentation to really enhance certain elements. You could put things into the background or the foreground. So it really come down to just tweaking those visual attributes to make certain things stand out and making certain things not stand out. So that would be my approach.
And from a quantitative perspective, it's like 1 to 30, right? So if you say 1% out of 30 is only like, maybe less than 3%. So like 95% audience is more fatter. So
okay.
From a quantitative perspective, how will you say that?
Well, I think a good example would be something like those kind of like circle charts or bubble charts where you have the size that differentiates.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you could use something like that in this case.
Okay, just a fun question. So
yes.
Okay, so another question, the last question, and the last 2-3 minutes as well. I'm very genius, I'm very smart, and I know everything about you myself. How will you visualize this, tell a story about it?
That's very difficult. I think, if you think that you know everything, it's very hard to see where things can be improved. So I think for someone with those particular attributes, I would say, it would be a very detailed story. We're outlining all of the things that you're really good at. So things like a resume where you're just talking about a lot of things that you can do, and maybe things that you can't do.
Right.
And so really inflating that aspect of it would be very, very detailed. I see a lot of text and a lot of bullet points.
I got it. So let's hold it here, and then we'll invite you another follow-up session maybe after a couple of weeks, and we'll take it from there. Anyways, it was a pleasure to talk to you, and very informative information you have shared with us. I hope this will help our folks, right? And whoever have joined, thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure talking to you, and cheers and have a great day.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for the invite. Honored to be a part of it.
See you then. Bye.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.